Welcome to the Sister Street Show with Mary Nunnally and Sharon Aguirre, interactive show and virtual playground where we explore topics around entrepreneurship, online and in-person events, and the games that can be played with all of it. We invite you on our journey of sisterhood discovery and trial and error in the adventures of online entrepreneurship.
Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Mary Nunnally, one of the co-hosts of the Sister Street Show. And as promised, we are doing a series where we are interviewing really fascinating entrepreneurs, former entrepreneurs, and just cool people. Now, one of the things you may have learned if you've been watching the show for any length of time is that Sharon Otagora and I, my co-host, connected because of our backgrounds in hospitality. Well, guess what? The hospitality world is a big, small world. And our special guest today is Celeste Raines, who is going to share her journey from corporate to entrepreneur to back to corporate. And I know one of the things that has come up in conversation from our audience is, oh man, I don't want to be seen as a failure because I left the corporate world and then started entrepreneurship and I didn't make it. So I'm a loser because I went back to corporate. Well, I specifically asked Celeste on today because she's here to tell you you're not a loser if you go from entrepreneurship back to corporate. So Celeste, would love to have you introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and we're just going to have a conversation about your journey and what you miss about being an entrepreneur, but what you really missed about being in corporate. So first of all, why don't you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. As Mary mentioned, I'm Celeste Raines. Mary and I go back a long ways. Gosh, Mary, what, 28 years or something?
Yeah, something like that.
A long ways back. But Mary and I worked in the world of L&D for many years together. We overlapped, and when we changed organizations, one would go there, the other would follow, or this one was now a contractor for this company. So we have had some really cool overlap experiences, and we've been really lucky to be able to work together on projects and for so many years, and it's been pretty cool. And I know that eventually, wherever I go, Mary will eventually be there, and vice versa. So that's pretty cool. But
Really
that's where we've always overlapped, was either in the L&D world or the technology world. And yeah, we both have kind of a weird meandering path.
We do, but it's so great because it goes back to having a network of people that you can call upon and rely upon.
So
And
true.
you just never know when you're going to need something. Like just before, we started recording, we were talking about another mutual friend and sharing some food adventures and different things. And so when you think of networking, it's not always about who do you know that can help me fix a problem. When you think about networking, what does networking mean to you? And then we're going to segue into more about your path from entrepreneurship back to corporate.
Oh, absolutely. For me, networking is just like any other form of sales or the path to sales. It's relationship building. And if you're of the mindset that I'm going to jump directly to sales, that's going to be a short-lived success story. If you haven't built the relationships behind it, it will not be what Mary just mentioned, where you can reach out to that person and get ideas, answers, connections. Those are the things that come as a result of having built a relationship. Like Mary was talking about, we were sharing favorite restaurants and cities where this particular international kind of restaurant is more plentiful than where we are in Nashville. So we can absolutely reach out to each other. And I reach out to Mary all the time and say, hey, I want to do this. What ideas do you have? Or what apps do you know about? Or what resources? So that's something that you can't buy, that sort of connection. And so it's something that I treasure, being able to have that kind of relationship with a colleague and friend. and that I can call Mary my friend. She's not just my colleague. She has been my friend for many, many decades.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's so true. And speaking of calling on a friend, when we were chatting about bringing you on as a guest for the show, one of the things I said is like, when you went back to corporate, what were you looking for? And while friendship wasn't the thing that came out, Celeste and I are very different in the sense that I am an extreme introvert and I love networking with people via the computer. But if I have to leave my home, I'm like, I don't really want to. Celeste, on the other hand, is very much the extrovert. And I think that's another reason that our friendship and our working relationship is really balanced because we have those 2 points of view. And you had said something about one of the big things that you were looking for in going back to corporate had to do with people. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. eh, when working as an independent, I was, as the owner or principal, I was typically in the role of being a project manager and would hire independent contractors to fulfill whatever role was needed for that project. So it could be a graphic designer, could be a copywriter, programmers, whatever. And that was great. I had really talented and reliable people, and I had a wonderful blend. I mean, if you think about it, the world's your oyster. You can find all the professionals you need out there that way. But what I truly missed for the years that I was acting in the entrepreneurial role, I missed being part of a team that was always part of that team. We might work on different projects, but we shared this common company bond. We had a common goal. We might all be wearing different hats, but we were all working towards that company's success. And as Mary mentioned, I'm an extreme extrovert. I get my energy and creativity from people. And so that kind of interaction and that ability to just bounce an idea off someone, whether it be in an email or in person or even a text message, say, hey, what do you think about? I missed that commonality. I missed having the same team. I might not be working with you on this particular project. Maybe that's just mine, but you understand the company culture, you understand where we're going, you understand what we're trying to do. And I can say, hey, what am I missing here? Is there something? So that was something that felt like a big hole for me that I would be able to fill it periodically with different collaborations, but I was never able to get it that fix. And so, like Mary said, it might feel like you're failing at a business because you take a different tack, but it's not failure. It's a choice, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
no, I think that that's brilliant. And it's like as a subcontractor, I work with different organizations, including yours, and you do a really good job of making me feel part of the team. And you bring me into the site when it was permissible and those types of things. But still, at the end of the day, when you're a contractor working for a company, you still don't necessarily have that same bond because you're ephemeral, you're temporary. I mean, while we have worked together for many, many years, I'm still not a team member of your team. And so
Right.
while I feel connected, I still don't have that same bond. And so I could really understand where somebody who is an entrepreneur goes, I really just want to be part of something bigger.
That
That
that's spot on, Mary. Being part of something bigger than just me. That's yeah, that see, I could have shortened that and just said that.
yeah, but I think the story is really, really helpful. And what we want to do at Sister Street is show people that there is no one path. And so the next question that I have for you is because of your experience as an entrepreneur, How has that helped you when you've gone back into corporate? Has your and the word mindset I know is often overused, but there are some folks that believe you can be an entrepreneur within a company, and other people who think that you can only be an entrepreneur if it's your own company. So my question to you is, having run your own business, how has that set you up for success going back into corporate? Did your way of looking at things or did your mindset change any because you also had that experience of being a successful entrepreneur and then realizing this isn't the right path for me?
Oh, that's a very insightful question. Um, so perhaps I've always been a little bit of an entrepreneurial mindset. As a department head, you are kind of running your own business. As the leader of a learning and development team, or whatever department it happens to be. So I suppose I've always maybe acted in that role, but it absolutely helped me because of having been um, having been in the entrepreneurial world and acted regularly as more of a project manager and managing multiple people. You learn very quickly that your income is based on your ability to manage that, manage all of the bits and pieces, all of the people, all of the roles that are filled by the people who, by the way, don't actually work for you. Typically, if they're contractors, they don't work for me. So I am vying for their attention, for their dedication to make my project the best one you're working on. But that same thing translates into the corporate world in the sense that I am I am trying to get the support of my colleagues. And mine, by the way, the company I work for is a global company, and we have offices all over the world. So I am constantly vying for the resources of other subsidiaries around the world, of other offices of our headquarters based in Germany. So it is really a very translatable concept in that I am an entrepreneur within my organization and run my department as a company because I need to meet goal. I want to make budget. I want to do this. And so yeah, those skills and priorities definitely translate. Look at you with the good questions.
All right. So I got two more questions before we wrap
Okay.
up.
All right.
Question number one: how did being an entrepreneur, moving back to corporate, prepare you for that massive workforce change that happened in 2020, i.e., the
Mm.
pandemic and workplaces shutting down and going to remote?
Wow, that's okay. Yep, that's an easy one. Because I had already worked remotely, managing contractors all over. This was just an extension of that. Well, it was a little bit different in the kind of organization I work with now. There were some roles that couldn't be made remote, couldn't run remotely, manufacturing, for instance. But my function absolutely translated into the remote world very easily. I was mine was one of the roles that was easiest to move into the fully online and fully remote world. I still work primarily remotely, and here we are, people heading back into the workforce. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. So follow up to that is what was different and what prepared you? I mean, yes, you worked remote,
Mhm.
but as an entrepreneur, you know, were there any things that you did, like maybe doing meetings or and I know because you work for an international company, a global company, a
Mhm.
lot of that is already addressed. It's not like you can fly to company headquarters every Tuesday for the weekly, department meeting. So
Mhm.
there is some of that. And as people are coming back to the workplace, or we're thinking about what is hybrid, what is remote, what is on site, how do we address our workplace, how do we make everyone feel connected? Any
Mhm.
tips or recommendations that you would make, again, for people that might have been used to being 100% on your own and doing your own schedule, and now you're going back to corporate into a role that's maybe 3 days in the office, 2 days remote, or
Mhm.
2 days in the
Yeah.
office, 3 days remote, and how do you build those relationships?
Um, it in many ways, it's easier now to build those relationships, to maintain the connections, because there are so many more tools and it is more widely used. So as an entrepreneur, I still did a lot of face-to-face meeting. I met with clients in person. I met with contractors in person. Whereas now, being entirely remote, it's yeah, we had the rug pulled out from under us without a whole lot of warning, but there are so many great tools now. And so it truly did help me, now that you bring it up that way, because I was working with programmers in Europe when I was an entrepreneur, and I worked with programmers in India. They would build back-end databases for me. And so I was project managing those folks remotely, people who weren't in my local area. And that certainly translates. But one of the things that I think of was, as an entrepreneur, yes, you had great flexibility. You could take off anytime you wanted, but of course, then there's no income stream. So we have to do that judiciously. But one of the things that, even if I was on vacation, I was never fully on vacation. I was always having to keep those plates spinning. I was always having to make sure that this was still progressing. So I was never 100% off. And that same thing kind of holds true now. I would say that I still, even on vacation, still keep an eye on things, still keep my hand
Mhm.
in the mix, because, truth be told, I'm a control freak. Mary can attest to that.
Yeah, we'll share those stories another time.
Yeah. So I suppose in that way, even though this was many, many years ago, 10 and 15 years ago that I was in the entrepreneurial role, it that does translate. And in many ways, it's a little easier, I would suppose, now being an entrepreneur and working remotely than it was when we didn't have all these tools so readily available.
Yeah, I think it's a mixed thing. It's a mixed bag. We have all the tools, and there's this urge to be connected all the time as an entrepreneur, and it's about setting boundaries, just like in the workplace. Setting
Yeah.
those boundaries. It's like what we attempt to do with Lavender Dragon is take Fridays as professional development day. Does it always work? No, but it's a goal, it's an aspiration, and we're getting better at it. And our clients now ask us, it's like, I hate to do this. Can we meet this project's in a crunch? But now they're okay if we say, you know what? No, we can't. Or yes, that's our decision. You can have 30 minutes, not an hour. And so I think those boundaries,
Mhm.
you learn that in corporate as well. So the last question for you,
Mhm.
you've made the transition back to the corporate world.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to somebody who is currently an entrepreneur who is thinking, you know what? I just need to go back to corporate, whether it's for the steady paycheck, whether it's for the team, like you were saying, that was the thing that you really missed, whether it's because I just need to get out of the house. We all have our reasons for the decisions that we make, and none of them are right or wrong. They're just decisions, and you have to make the decision that's best for you. But as somebody who has gone from being a successful entrepreneur to now being super successful again in your current company, what advice would you give to someone who's really toying with that decision? Because we've known each other for so long, I mean, I actually got to see some of that decision-making process too.
True. Oh, okay. I think something that would have been super helpful if somebody had shared it with me as I was deciding to re-enter corporate. Um, as you go back into the corporate world, there are people who have never worked on their own, never been an entrepreneur, and they may have a tendency to sell short the gifts and talents and absolute wisdom that you gained as an entrepreneur. Do not allow anyone to dismiss that. It's an extraordinary collection of knowledge and skills that you have from having been an entrepreneur. Play that up. do not second guess all the skills that you've gained. Think about all of the things you do. You've been a project manager. You do marketing, sales, billing. You do all the departments. So play up the knowledge you have of all of the various functions that are now going to be a different department, not outsourced. They're an existing department. So, hey, here's what I know about finance. Here's what I know about this. I can't do that job. I don't want to be the accounting manager. However, I do understand this. That is, you have a lot more knowledge than you've probably given yourself credit for, and do not allow anyone in the corporate world to second guess that the depth of that knowledge and how much it's going to benefit their company.
Oh, that's powerful. I mean, and as you're saying that, I was just thinking about that's like, I keep my books. I have to do my marketing plan. I have to do my own social media, and I have to do client relations. And a lot of times I'm also in the trenches building the courses. And so, yeah, no, that's
You
powerful.
wear all the hats, and not everybody in corporate's going to recognize how multi-talented you are.
I love it. All right. One last thing, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
We'd like to give our viewers like good recommendations for a book that you're reading or a podcast that you're listening to. It doesn't have to be business related. I mean, it can be fiction, nonfiction, fun, whatever. What is something that you would recommend?
Oh man. Well, a book that I just finished last week that it was absolutely heart-wrenching, but also so compelling I couldn't put it down, and it has changed me to my core. It was on Oprah's book list, so that's not the reason I'm reading it. I'm part of a book club, and somebody else recommended it. It's called American Dirt.
Oh,
And it is about it is essentially an immigrant story. It is fictionalized, but it is the story of all of those who just want to put their foot on American dirt.
oh, wow. I'm getting chills just listening to that.
It's there are parts of it that will break your heart, but don't put it down.
Wow.
It's so worth it to see it through. And as a lifelong American citizen, it really truly made me think about how very fortunate I am, and how sometimes I just take it for granted. What gifts I have, what I am allowed to do just by virtue of where I was born.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a
Powerful.
fantastic book.
I will have to add that to my to be read list. Thank you. It's always fun talking to our guests and getting recommendations. And so thank you for that. So Celeste,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for joining us on the Sister Street Show. It's always fun to chat. And
My pleasure. Thank
I
you. I
will,
can't wait to follow Sister Street now.
there you go. Follow us on YouTube, and I will let you know when we're live again. And so thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Bye,
All
everybody.
right. Bye everyone.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for future videos.